Hi.
Okay, 30 seconds. Then this is happening. Gotcha.
10, 9, 8, 7.
Okay, have at it.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are super happy to be here live today, Radio 104.5 in our AT&T Thanks Sound Studio. For the first time, Houses is here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Playing a show tonight with Jungle at Union Transfer. We have music to talk about, all sorts of things, but it's music. First here at Radio 104.5. The stage is yours, Houses. Please. Houses in our AT&T Thanks Sound Studio. Okay, so these are your first shows just in the last few weeks as Houses in like 5 or 6 years.
That's
yes?
correct, yeah.
Was it terrifying to think about coming out and doing this again like this? Was it exhilarating? Like, where was your head at? And then compare 3 or 4 weeks ago to how you're feeling about it now that you've been back on stage doing this.
So at the start, it was very terrifying. Our first show, our first show with Jungle was at the Palladium, and it was like 3,500 people or something like that, and we really hadn't played on a solid stage in 6 years, and so that was really terrifying. And then our next show was like a headline show with like probably 80 people at it, and so that was actually really nice. We've been kind of going through the gauntlet of just like this sort of like big crowds, small crowds, big venues, small venues, and now at this point it just all feels like a really nice thing. Like, we feel like we can handle anything at this point.
Okay, all
We're
right.
like 3 weeks in though.
Yes, and just in time for Philly tonight, Union Transfer.
One of my favorite venues too of all time. Love Union
too.
Transfer.
Yes. All right. So you've played before? You visit? Yeah.
We came through with Baths a long time ago, and then with Cold War Kids back. Yeah, like it was 5 years ago, I think.
Okay, cool. So, your people tell me it'll be 8:30-ish when you hit the stage tonight.
I think so.
I always like that. I don't like the ambiguity of set times at all. It's like
know.
show up in sometime in this 4-hour time frame. You'll probably see the band that you want to see. So we want to make sure you're there to see Houses tonight at Union Transfer. I believe doors are at 7:30, and you guys taking the stage right about 8:30. Do you remember? Let's go way back, not to 5 or 6 years ago, but to your very first ever time on stage. What was that? What did it look like? What did it feel like?
I have to think about this for a second. Oh, it's horrible. All right, so I got, I was in high school, and I was a drummer, and it was like a group of college musicians had a band, and they had like heard that I could play really fast. I used to play like punk drums, and so they had heard that there was a kid in high school who could play drums for them, and they auditioned me, and I could play all their songs because it was pretty bad, like pop punk stuff. And then they had me go on stage that night with them and play like 2 songs, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I actually had forgotten all the songs that they had taught me earlier in the day, and I just did my own thing for like 5 minutes on stage, and it was horrible. Yeah, I remember the person I had brought with was like, "That was horrible. I'm so sorry you did that."
But you came back for more.
Came back. I couldn't stay away.
And we are very, very thankful for that.
Thanks.
Fast Talk, which I believe we're going to hear
Yes.
momentarily. I want to talk about that for a second. It's definitely heavy on a certain type of nostalgia. There's like a time and place associated with that song. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's it's a song about growing up in Chicago, like specifically. It's like a kind of like gap between 2001 and 2006. Where I had a group of friends, and it was for lack of a better word, it's like a pretty dark time, but it's also just sort of a reflection on like what youth was for me, which was really this sort of bittersweet thing where you're like making memories that don't feel like the memories everybody else is making. You feel like you're doing it all wrong. You feel like you're living your life in the wrong way. And just constantly trying to get out of your own way. And reflecting on that, realizing that there was a lot of like beauty and joy and all that, and you get experiences that other people don't.
We definitely want to talk more, but I feel like now you have to play it.
I can play it now, yes.
Radio 104.5 and Houses live.
Me and my best friends cruising down West End Street, hiding from cops and driving circles around the block all week. Now all of my friends died out on West End Street. They say we're born to die young, but we're just trying to live in peace. So maybe heaven is a ghetto with no bad blocks, Shangri-La dealers at the bus stop, and maybe God is just a cop that we can fast talk. So if you're guilty and you know it, put your hands up, 'cause karma's just a different word for bad luck. And what if death is just another pair of handcuffs? Well then we better run. All of our friends went crazy on LSD, sailing their cars through the big bright city streets. And everyone who knows our name says that we ain't ever gonna change. They say we're born to die young, but we're trying to find a better way. They say we're born to die young, but we're trying to find a better way. Maybe heaven is a ghetto with no bad blocks, Shangri-La dealers at the bus stop, and maybe God is just a cop that we can fast talk. So if you're guilty and you know it, put your hands up, 'cause karma's just a different word for bad luck. And what if death is just another pair of handcuffs? Well then we better run.
live on Radio 104.5 with Houses. That's Fast Talk, aka the song that so many of us have been just full on obsessing over for the last, I don't know, 6+ months or so. They're opening up for Jungle tonight at Union Transfer, a favorite venue of Dexter and Houses. 8:30-ish set time. I want to make sure you get there in time. Very, very quickly, you've been recreating old mix CDs into Spotify playlists.
Yes.
And it sounds like the time that's captured in Fast Talk is right around the same time of this latest one you did. You said 2000 to 2004, ditching school, listening to The Smiths and Flaming Lips and Neutral Milk Hotel.
Yeah.
Are you relying on memory to put these back together?
Yes.
You are.
Yeah, it's all memory because I don't have any of them anymore. They all got scraped up. I mean, you remember the old Walkmans, and I never had a top to mine, and so it would just be the raw CD spinning around in there, and I have to keep it real safe in my pit. But yeah, it's all from memory, and I'm 80% sure I'm getting the order right, but it's mostly it's the songs that count.
I mean, it's totally the songs that count. Also, I'm so impressed that your memory is that good because after I read that, I was like, A, I think we would have been friends based on some of those songs. And then B, I was like, nope, I definitely couldn't do that. So I hope that's something that continues. Houses is here. We're not done yet. More conversation, more music to come. I hope you will join us over at the web stream, radio1045.com. We're going to continue there, but for everybody else, throwing it back to the studio. Okay. So you can play the song with all the swear words now. Okay, cool. Not yet. A couple of sort of quick, rapid, fiery kind of questions.
Sure.
Just don't overthink it too much. By the way, that's coming from the queen of overthinking things. Do you prefer, because I know you spend a lot of time in the studio, not just working on Houses, but working on other projects. Do you prefer being in the studio or being live on stage?
It's a different thing. I'll spend years just in my studio, which isn't very big, and it's I really appreciate being able to a decade into our career as Houses, be able to actually come out and see people show up for our shows and stuff like that. It's it's very, very rewarding. And once I get too lonely inside my house, this is the only way out.
I want to know a little bit, the sidebar, I want to know a little bit more about this home studio. So it's your studio, it's at your house?
Yes.
Tell me dimensions, tell me what it looks like. Do you have
It's definitely not as big as this room. I mean, I start everything on my own in my house, and it's it's a bedroom. It's it's an extra bedroom. It's pretty small, and
especially if it's an LA extra bedroom.
Yeah, well, I move it all over the place now. I've rented places and stuff like that. I've really gotten past the idea that the studio is what sort of what your studio looks like defines what kind of music you're going to make, because I have just been having to rough it for a real long time. But yeah, I mean, generally, I start songs in my studio, and then once they get good enough, they kind of graduate into other people's nice studios, and I get to go to their house and their rooms, and so that's.
I like to hear that, and part of the reason I wanted to ask is because there are no rules, right?
There's no rules.
And it's really it's cool.
I've made my worst songs in the nicest studios that exist.
And it costs so much more money to do that, too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you prefer Twitter or Instagram? How do you like to be out there and
be
connect with
out
people?
there? I'm afraid of all of it. I'm terrified of every single one of the platforms. Twitter is what I use for a lot of things. I like curating a lot of the people I follow. I keep it pretty tight, and so Twitter remains pretty cool most of the time for me.
Okay, I like it. Books or movies?
Books, all day.
Okay, what's the latest book you read?
I'm currently reading a book called A Timeless Way of Building by Christopher Alexander. It's about the philosophy of building cities that are living. It's very cool.
Cool.
I'd highly recommend it to anyone looking
I
for
like
a
that.
wild philosophical read.
I feel like we need a book club. I like that. What's the last TV show you binge watched?
Oh yeah, I watched Atlanta. We watched a significant amount of Atlanta. Our drummer comes down and stays with us and stuff while we're doing rehearsals, and so we just we binge watched Atlanta. The second season, it's a beautiful show.
I don't know it. I haven't seen it, but again, I'm I don't have to do work looking for things. I'm getting recommendations from Houses, from Dexter. Before I forget, because I will forget, because that's who I am. Please introduce the band.
Hi, I'm Dexter. We are Houses. This is my girlfriend Megan Messina.
Hi.
This is Tyson, who was my neighbor before I made him join the band. And this is our longtime drummer, Brennan Rhodes.
Awesome. Thank you for that. See, guys, I didn't want to, be a jerk like that. So going from maybe binge watching in books, I want to know something outside of your work, outside of the studio that you're completely, totally engrossed with and obsessed with right now, but that has nothing to do with music.
It's going to be nerdy. I'm doing like computer science courses online, and I'm really into like learning a couple programming languages, which is it's sad to say because it's not the exciting answer you were looking for, I'm sure, but it's what I do most of the time is read about programming languages and try to make little programs that work.
I thought maybe learning a new language might be something.
Yeah.
So you are learning.
It's just
a new
like that,
language.
yeah.
Listen, you're the artist, and I think it's really fascinating to like get in that brain a little bit, and I think that gives us so much more context as we're listening. Last but not least, when you first started to fall in love with music, and we talked about some of the things you were listening to in the early 2000s with that Spotify mix, did you have any posters hanging on like a bedroom wall or in a locker at school or whatever, musically speaking, and what were they?
Okay, so I had the insert from the Neutron Milk Hotel album in the Aeroplane Over the Sea, which was like the big thing. And yeah, I had that pinned up to my wall for a long time. I had, it was mostly inserts, honestly, and it's kind of a shame because music packaging has gone like out the window completely. I mean, I used to just unfold the things like inside CDs and just tape them up to my wall. But yeah, that Mount Erie was a good one. I think those are it. I kept my walls pretty clean.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What about your room?
No.
The walls clean, the room not so much.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, actually, I lied. One more thing. Before we have you play one more song, what's 2019 shaping up to look like? I know there's festivals. You got a few more dates with Jungle.
Yes.
Will there be new music? I noticed you said you've been sort of working on music and throwing it away a whole bunch.
Yeah, it's my favorite hobby. That's my number one hobby is throwing music away. Yeah, so when we get back home from this tour, I'm going to be finishing up a group of songs that are probably going to fill out like a whole album. And then, yeah, we are playing a bunch of festivals towards the end of the year, and we should be doing some more shows and touring, and probably, I'm sure we'll be back in Philly as well.
Okay, good answer. We like that.
Yeah.
That's a good note to leave it on. Houses, one more for us live on Radio 104.5.
Thank you. We can make it on our own.
was just thinking I'm so sad it's over, but it doesn't have to be over because Houses are doing a whole set tonight at Union Transfer, opening up for Jungle 8:30ish. Drugstore Heaven, the EP is out, and a whole lot more to come. Hopefully, another visit to Philly too later.
Tons more
in
visits to Philly.
2019. AT&T Thanks Sound Studio. We're live with Houses. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for coming here so early in the morning, all of you. It's really nice to see all your faces.